UN researchers have warned that humanity is moving dangerously close to irreversible climate risk tipping points that would drastically damage our ability to cope with disasters. I'm joined now by Chris Caldwell, CEO of United Renewables, and Jennifer Salmon, a climate youth delegate. And they're both attending a major climate conference at TCD in Dublin tomorrow. I mean, good timing for all of this. You would say the time is very much now. It was yesterday actually to have a conference like this, and decades ago. Jennifer, I mean, from your point of view, is there a severe climate anxiety out there now? Like, you're a young person attending this particular conference. Is there a feeling of doom, I would say, at this point?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it's something that I wouldn't have necessarily experienced until SB 58 this year in June, where for the first time I kind of saw, as part of the national delegation, you kind of see behind the scenes a little bit more, and kind of seeing international law being discussed. It's kind of frustrating because you feel like everything's going so slowly, and yet it's such an urgent and pressing issue. So I think certainly I kind of lost faith a little bit after SB 58 and was thinking, like, I'm just so hopeless. Like, where are we going with this? But I think, the climate summit that's happening tomorrow is a really kind of positive thing, and it's a really good time for young people, businesses, corporates, industry leaders and policymakers all to be discussing how are we actually going to try and achieve net zero by 2030. So I think it's promising that there's events like this still happening, and of course COP coming up too. So we just have to keep trying and stay positive.
I guess the question is there a sense, Chris, that it is achievable, this net zero goal? It appears very elusive, at least from where we are now.
Yeah, well, there's a much-quoted McKinsey study which says we've got 78% of all the technologies that we need to be able to achieve net zero. That's great. If you can do roughly 80% of the with existing technologies to get us there, all that we need to do to implement it is have the will. Now, it's the will that we're slightly lacking, but the planet is nudging us towards understanding that we can't keep on doing what we've been doing. This summer, we've seen floods, we've seen drama, we've seen droughts, we've seen incredible scenes in New York with the forest fires from Canada. It looks like Mad Max, and then a month later, it's been flooded. The world is really in China as well, Asia, like all of these major emergencies, which means that we are finding it more difficult to ignore. Now, together with the warnings we've been getting, there's also a great opportunity, because we need to be spending something like $4 trillion a year to be transforming the economy between now and 2040. We're currently spending about 850. There's a big gap, about 850 million. Billion. There's a big gap between where we are and where we need to be. But within that gap, there is the opportunity. There's enormous opportunity for us to be.
Yeah, because just to clarify, you're CEO of a renewable company, so your focus is very much on that, on what can be achieved in terms of reducing our carbon footprint through that. Yeah. Like, the question is, how is Ireland faring when it comes to renewables? There's a lot of pressure on it, actually, primarily because from a consumer point of view, we do want cheaper electricity bills. We want to bring our bills down, our energy bills down. Yeah. And renewables are being offered as a way of us being able to do that, but they're not coming on stream quickly enough. That's what the critics say.
That is true. They're not coming on quickly enough. And the main problem, as with a lot of issues in Ireland for building stuff quickly, is the planning legislation. We've got a wonderful natural resource here. We've got great wind. We've got very decent solar. We've got great water. We can be energy independent, and if we're energy independent, then you don't need to be going to the wholesale markets and buying in oils and gases. You can be running your own ship and bring down costs of energy quite dramatically.
It's how quickly that can happen, and how quickly progress can be made in that area. Jennifer, from your point of view, what way would you like to see companies more accountable? Do you think that there is the will there that Chris mentioned for change and for that jump that clearly, like, people like you say we need to make in this area?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is the will. And as a final year student, every kind of company who's looking to hire you now is all, explaining all their ESG goals and sustainability that they're doing. And it sort of feels sometimes like it's a marketing thing, that they just want to tell you about all these different things they have going on.
And do you think it's genuine, or is it a marketing thing? We hear about greenwashing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because a lot of it is greenwashing, but I think tomorrow's summit is a really great example of kind of people holding each other accountable and businesses coming together to say, well, what are we doing that's working really well? How can we implement it in other places? And I think it's promising that, with accountability, things like the climate summit tomorrow, there is hope that it's not all just marketing really with ESG.
Yeah, and like, look, people will say there's a climate summit being held in Dublin, but like, we are a small country. Yes, the big ideas will be presented at that particular summit, but look at the big, carbon users. Look what's happening in the big countries. Look what China's doing. Look at the coal mines. Look at, and what difference can we actually make in all of this? Or is it just, a talking shop, Chris?
Well, we can, but when we all can make a big difference. Like we as European Union citizens, we are doing a really good job of telling our politicians and telling our leaders that we really care about this stuff. And the political leaders are listening. The climate legislation that's going through in Europe is world leading. But the reason that is happening is because you've got more than 70% of the population who believe in climate change and are concerned about it. So there was a survey just this morning that was released in The Guardian that just said that very point.
Yeah, I suppose we're moving into now the next COP. Is it COP28? And we will hear more, evidence and fears about our future. And the question is around that, is there hope that more achievement can be made than, I suppose, what was arguably made at COP26 and other climate summits to date?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really looking great at the moment for COP28 as to what will come out of it. But I mean, if we go into things like this hopeless, then nothing will actually change. And I think it's really important for people to remember the value that their voice has. And as Chris was saying, if we get legislation in that's progressive enough, there is hope that things can change. So I think it's important to remember the value of your voice in terms of, when your TDs are coming to you and saying what's important to you. If you say climate, that's the things that they're going to focus on then, of course. So I think with collective action, there is
that
hope.
A priority with your generation?
Yeah, I absolutely think it is because, it's our generation who are going to be the ones who are experiencing climate's effects. At the moment, the IPCC is saying that, we need to reduce emissions by 51% by 2030 to, be able to be okay. And, we're not on track to reduce by 51% at all. So I think it is something that everyone our age should really care about.
All right, OK, all of us indeed. There we will leave it. My thanks to Jennifer, to Chris, to all our panellists tonight. That is it from us. Our programme is available as a podcast on all major platforms. You can find us on Instagram and on TikTok. But from all the late team here, good night and take care.